Chag Sameach. You've just heard the Arba Kashiot, the 4 questions, beautifully chanted. 4 questions is an opening for the telling of the story of Pesach, of Yetziat Mitzrayim, the Exodus from Egypt. The 4 questions are not directly answered in the Haggadah, but they are asked to teach us an important lesson, that as Jews, we should always critically analyze and question our sacred texts and our traditions. By questioning and analyzing, we gain knowledge and come closer to God. The 4 questions, as I mentioned, are not directly answered, but I'm going to answer them tonight. So, Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol halelot? What makes this night different from all the other nights? On all other nights, we eat chametz and matzah. We eat leaven and unleavened. But on this night, kulo matzah. On this night, only matzah. Why do we not eat chametz, not only on this night, but on the whole week of Pesach, during the whole week of Pesach? Well, we are told in the Torah that we should not eat chametz during the 7 days of Pesach, and we shall not own any chametz during the 7 days of Pesach. We are meant to rid ourselves, our homes, of all chametz. The reason given by the Torah is that when the Israelites had to flee Egypt after the 10th plague, the death of the firstborn Egyptian, they had to flee in a hurry before Pharaoh once more changed his mind. And so they took the dough that they had prepared to make bread, put it in kneading bowls, and carried it out into freedom, not allowing the dough to rest and to prove to rise, as is normally done when making bread. And so when they eventually could bake the bread came out hard and flat, like a matzah. And therefore, to remember our ancestors' hurried exodus from Egypt, we are not to eat chametz. Chametz also symbolizes arrogance and wrongdoing, and we are meant to be free of arrogance, wrongdoing, and all the phobias that we have during Pesach. We are meant to free ourselves, so we rid ourselves of all the chametz, all the baggage that we carry, to start afresh, to start anew. The second question, on all other nights, we eat all types of herbs or vegetables, but on this night, only maror, only bitter herbs. The reason why we only eat bitter herbs at the Seder table is to remind us of the bitterness of slavery. The third question asks that on all other nights, we only dip once, but on this night, we dip twice. So in ancient times, and many of us still today, will eat finger food, maybe as a starter, as an hors d'oeuvre, and you dip it in sauces. But on the Seder night, you make sure to dip twice during the meal. The first time is when you take the karpas, the vegetable, the potato, or the parsley, and dip it in salt water. The salt water reminds us of the salty tears that the Israelites cried, and they cried to God, and God heard their plight, heard their plea for freedom, and sent Moshe Rabbeinu to free us from Egypt. The second time we dip is when you eat the maror. So there's a custom to take the horseradish or the bitter lettuce and to dip it in a bit of charoset, the apple and date and wine mixture with a bit of honey that is made to symbolize the mortar, to symbolize the clay which the Israelites used to make bricks in order to build the fortified cities for Pharaoh when they were slaves. And so we dip our bitter lettuce or our horseradish root in some of the charoset before eating it. And the fourth question asks that on all other nights, we eat either sitting upright or leaning at the table. But on this night, we eat leaning. And the reason for leaning at the table, at the Seder table when we eat, is to emulate the ancient Roman nobility who used to lie back on couches when they ate at their banquets. The Seder was formulated by the rabbis to replace their ancient Passover offering, the Paschal lamb, the Pesach. When the ancient Israelites would take a lamb or a kid, a baby goat, per household, per family, make pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and they slaughter the lamb or the kid and roast it over a spit braai, and eat it with matzah and maror, with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. When the temple was destroyed, this sacrifice could no longer take place. And so the rabbis formulated the Seder to replace this sacrifice. And the Seder was formulated during the time of Roman persecution of the Jews in the land of Israel. So as a snub, as a slight to the persecutor, the rabbis formulated our celebration modeled on the ancient Roman banquet. That's why we eat leaning at the table. That is why there's a tradition that when we pour our 4 cups of wine, we don't pour our cups, the wine for ourselves, we pour it for somebody else, and somebody else pours the wine for us, to acknowledge the fact that as free people, we have others pour the wine for us. And now we can continue with the story of the Passover, of the Pesach, of the Yetziat Mitzrayim, of the Exodus from Egypt, with Avadim Hayinu.